Alrighty, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Before the Break. This week we have a fantastic guest. His on-stage credits include a chorus line, Bat Boy, Anything Goes, and Sweeney Todd, just to name a few. You may know him from his hilarious online videos as Inappropriate Patti, which led him to his latest role on 2 episodes of American Horror Story New York. Please welcome to the show, Jonathan Hoover. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi guys, how's
Hi,
it going?
Jonathan. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you,
We're
Happy to
so
be here.
excited to chat. We do have kind of an area of expertise that we do want to focus on. But first, Adam, how do you know Jonathan? Because Jonathan, I don't know if we've ever met. I don't remember your face,
I don't think so.
and maybe
So-
you don't remember mine. Go ahead.
As it turns out, Jonathan and I both have the same side hustle job here in New York City at Don't Tell Mamas on 46th Street. And one day we work in different parts of the place, but I saw him behind the bar and I was like,
Pause. It's happening.
is it?
Every time you speak, it might be your microphone wire. Because one time we had to deal with that. It's like
Yeah, it's bad.
it's embarrassing.
Jesus. Okay, one sec.
Gone. That bitch is gone. I can't hear you, but it's gone. Yeah,
Oh man.
he's writing. He's concentrating.
That or he's clicking over to use the mic on the headphones.
Right.
Although in that case, it might be better to use the other ones.
I wonder if those if that one has a mic on it.
They do, but the corded mics can be hard.
Can you
'cause
hear me?
gotta
I can hear
Yeah.
you.
Is it fine now?
There's feedback, and I also hear an echo.
Really?
That's interesting. I don't hear those things. Oh, now I hear the echo.
What the
It's
fuck?
it's because the mic is close to the earphone,
Uh-huh.
so it's picking up what
Oh,
you hear. In
your mic is on your.
I'm
headphones.
using the mic on this.
Okay, that's why. That's weird though. Why am I able to hear us?
because it's close to the
Oh,
earphone.
obviously, right. It's coming through. So if you turn us down, maybe Adam,
How about now?
good. But is that echo cancellation?
I turned on echolocation because I'm not using like a Frenchy mic. Is this all better?
Yeah,
Perfect.
Yeah?
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you want to start this old horror over again, or do you want to just jump in?
Did you hear all that shit through his intro and everything?
No, it was only when I allowed you
Let's
to
just
speak.
do the whole thing again.
Great, hit me,
Yeah.
baby.
Sorry,
Jesus.
Jonathan.
Nope, totally
it's
fine.
always my God. It's always,
This shit is always. I like sign on 5 minutes early to start fucking with shit because
Yeah.
it's always a problem.
Yeah,
okay. We're cool now, though,
for now.
until it happens again. Okay, here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Before the Break. This week we have a fantastic guest. His on-stage credits include a chorus line, Bat Boy, Anything Goes, and Sweeney Todd, just to name a few. You may know him from his hilarious online videos as Inappropriate Patti, which led him to his latest role on 2 episodes of American Horror Story New York. Please welcome to the show, Jonathan Hoover. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi guys, how's it going?
Jonathan Hoover, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell me how you know Adam before we get into this very, very specific niche thing that everyone needs to hear regarding making your own stuff and making your own opportunities. I just want to quickly lay the foundation. Where did you guys meet?
So Jonathan and I have like the same side hustle job here in New York
Don't
at
Mama.
at Don't Tell Mama on 46th Street. And one day I saw him behind the bar right when you started working there. And I was like, I feel like I know him. I mean, I don't know, but like he just looks familiar. And then I
That
was like trying to
mustache.
think about it. And I was like, maybe from like online video. Yeah. And then somebody said something to me and I was like, hold on. My dear friend Chelsea in California sends me video. Am I crazy? So like I go to Instagram to like the DMs because she used to send Patrick and I this stuff, and I was like, that's him. He does those like Patti LuPone videos. It's like, that's how I know him. Oh my God. But it took me a good 15 minutes to figure all that out. And then I texted her and I was like, you'll never believe who's working at Mama's right now. And she flipped out. But that's how we work together.
That gay guy.
Very
Wait,
good. Well, you know what? You do.
If you couldn't tell. If you couldn't tell. I know. Patti LuPone is typically a very heterosexual topic.
Totally.
Just a gay man casually awaiting a cease and desist from Patti LuPone.
And I've been debating if I should change that now after American Horror Story.
Oh, yeah.
But it's so correct.
This is great. Let's talk about this, Adam. I mean, the hardest thing to do, you can talk about making your own stuff. You can talk about, oh, that's how I'm going to get in. But it's one thing to chat about it. It's another to actually do it. But it's so interesting. The people that have done it and stuck to it, consistent, they did this thing and made it somewhat of a brand. They're on these shows. They have these followers. Not that that really matters, but it kind of does. Once you take action and you take your job into your own hands, because this is so out of our control. But it seems though, when you make your own stuff and you're creating this beautiful brand, you have more control over your destiny.
Well, and I think I can't speak to anyone else's intentions, but I did do it for my career because I felt no one knew who I was. I didn't go to a big college. I come from a family with not a lot of money. So like no one's supporting my artistic endeavors. So like I have side hustles. And so I can't do like, let me audition and make them know who I am. And like, I'm also not the actor that sends postcards or thank you cards or any of that. That's just like, unless I mean it. But I never wanted to be like, thank you for a callback. Like that's just like not who I am.
You think there's, as far as the authenticity of it, it's just not an avenue.
Yeah. It's like, just like, like what am I? You look at that and throw it away, and maybe you remember me. I'm not. It's just not a part.
Cool.
What feels natural. And so I did do it because I was hoping that it would be something you could like Google and like it would show up as like the third thing, and you'd be like, what the fuck is that? And then be like, oh, I learned something about this guy that came in today that I wouldn't see in the room. But honestly, I had no intention of having as many followers as it ended up gaining, or intention of it necessarily being the work that it's kind of led to, which is like it's actually, I feel in a place now where I'm like, okay, like I have this tool. So like, how do I continue to use that? But I do think the secret is not doing it because you have this like, and then I will be on television. I feel like people smell that. It's part of why I've never overproduced. In fact, if I got one criticism from anyone that follows me, I produce like a video every 3 months because I do it when I feel like it. And when I feel driven to do it, I don't do it. Like my TikTok following is so low because you literally have to commit to like weekly posting. And it's not me. It's just like not.
And just to let everybody know, because I just found this out, I'm doing a little bit of like, I'm starting to finally say, okay, you got to do this. You got to get out there and create. And of course, what you're talking about is it's like falling in love with the process rather than the destination. While you're creating and doing this, you're enjoying it. You're having fun auditioning because you love to audition and you love to act. And it's like loving the process of it. You then there's joy and no agenda while you're doing it because you're loving it.
Well, and like I've had people write me to create videos for them that they want me to put on my page and would give me money for that. I've had no interest in any of that because in fact, I just got off of Cameo because I feel like it was killing it for me.
How often did you do that?
It was, and let me say, I did love doing it. It's actually the pressure of getting it done, like especially because like 10 would come in at once, and it's like I have a job.
So they're coming in. I mean, they're literally
happy birthday, happy birthday. Just
well, but the difference is I'm not actually famous, right? So like I can't be like, hey guys, Jonathan Hoover just here saying happy birthday, like as I'm walking. No, I have to get the fucking wig
Right.
and like think of things to say. People
Right.
always want you to sing. So I have to like be in a place. Like there was a period where I had a huge cold for like a month that just I had no access to that imitation. And I had to just consistently like turn them down.
And Tom, I have seen people at work come in and either know that Jonathan works there and have sought out Inappropriate Patti at work, or have been in there and been like, do I know you? Wait, are you from the... And yes, and they're like, oh my God, I'm here. And it's like this weird happenstance while they're in New York and like they find him. And
did that ever make you uncomfortable, Jonathan? Because sometimes like when I was bartending and like, you know, a 12-year-old would come up to during a bar mitzvah and they're like, oh, you were on Chicago PD? What else were you in? Oh yeah, he did that. And they start looking you up with all their friends. You're just like, God, please don't like recognize me or ask me any questions or anything.
Honestly, it's kind of why I chose a place like Mama's, because then because it is a place because we sing as we bartend. So it is a place where people are coming to appreciate talent.
I see.
It doesn't feel, I used to work for an events company, managing, and I did that immediately coming back from the pandemic. I hadn't done it for like the year leading up to the pandemic and was like, fuck, like all the things I was tying together so that I didn't have a survival job aren't here anymore. I have to go back to a real job. So I was like, I'll go back to the events world. And the first event that I worked was an opening of a gallery, and it was like all these Broadway people that were invited, and they knew who I was.
Love that.
No, it was awful. It was awful.
No. I've done the same thing, but was a room full of casting directors, and I'm like, I'm gonna go be back a house and do dishes.
Yeah, this was.
Or like if you worked at a steak restaurant and someone was like, I know you're at work.
Right.
You
and like,
and you were like,
here's
no,
the worst part.
I'm at work.
Here's the worst part, because I was the manager, I have to like dress super nice. And like, so most thought that I was in attendance, but then at the same time, I've got like an earpiece in.
Right. You got the radio.
And like, I felt so much guilt and shame, and like, was like, this is, and also, so it had gotten kind of biggish before the pandemic, but it really doubled over the pandemic. I had like 10,000 followers at the beginning of and then it like almost doubled by the end of the pandemic. And like, I was leading staffs of people who knew who I was. And like, I can't manage you when I'm like worried about how you're going to feel about me as a person, when I'm like, okay, but you're like not doing your job. You know what I mean?
That's such an interesting world that sometimes we live in, where you're on stage or you're on something and someone sees you on something, but you're taking their drink order, and it's almost like this really like this duality, this really tough dissonance to straddle, where you're like writing down spaghetti bolognese or something, and they're like egging you on and wanting you to talk about
dance monkey. And
like, yes, clap.
But this leads back to the original question. So I literally sought out to work at a place like Don't Tell Mama, because I was like, I don't want to work in service anymore. So what would make that tolerable if I get to do art, my thing, on top of that? And also, I would love to have a touchstone for people constantly ask, like, are you performing anywhere? Are you doing any shows? I'm going to be in town from this time to this time. And now I can say, hey, I'll be at Don't Tell Mama on Sunday night. Now, the caveat to that is I do not push it as hard as I thought I would, because I hate our fucking boss. And if you're listening to this, Mike Calbo, I think you're the worst human being alive. So I don't push it as hard as I would like to. However, I love that. I'm at a point where I'm happy to tell him to his face.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion. But I have the ability to have people like there. I kind of like that. I would put it on my profile if I wanted to give him more money. Literally,
it's so crazy. Like Jonathan, I thought you would make such an incredible guest, because
and here you are, just like
we kind of haven't like delved into, I guess, so straightforward. We're like, what happened to you last year is such a testament to how insane and unpredictable and weird this industry is, and you hear stories and you're just like, that didn't happen. Where you're doing your own thing with no like intention of being on a television show. There's no, like you said, it oozes from people when that desperation of like, this is obviously trying to get me to this spot, right? It oozes off people, and it's kind of,
Right.
okay, chill out a little bit, right? And you're doing it when you want to do it, and people love it. And out of the blue, quite literally, one of the most prolific, powerful showrunners in the entertainment industry.
Period.
Literally.
It's like him and Shonda Rhimes are like, and
Literally
and Michael
DMs you
Schur.
on Instagram and is like, hey, I'm asking if you're available. I'm already doing it. I've written you this thing. I hope you're available.
Truly.
Bye.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
And that we will get into in a bit. So we're going to put a pin in that and
Put a
come
little
back
pin
to
in that.
what your insane 2022, because
It's
this
truly
shit
ridiculous.
is stranger than fiction. And it's going to make for an incredible story that we're going to get to later.
Right.
Before we get there, Jonathan Hoover, where are you from? How did you grow up? What was your like introduction and childhood relationship with the arts? And was there one? Tell us where you came from.
Oh man.
And how we got to this crazy place.
I came out of the womb singing in Orange County, California, which I believe you and I share in common.
Yes.
Adam, neighboring cities like Golden Grove, California. And my mother was a singer who trained as an opera singer, but never really did the thing because I don't think she came from a household that like really let her believe that she could ever do anything with it. And so she did the nuclear thing with no like Mama Rose-ness in her. She had a church singing job. That was her thing. But my mom sang. So like we were a singing family, even though my father was completely tone deaf and not allowed to sing in the car. By my rules.
We've had this conversation.
Dad, you're bad. You're really bad.
Just drive. Just drive.
Just drive. This is painful. Yeah, so my mom grew up singing, and I came out of the womb. My brother sang also and was interested in it and had arts inclinations, but I don't think it ever burned quite as deeply in him. I remember like seeing or hearing Phantom of the Opera on CD and being like, whatever that is, like, I want in on that. Annie, the like Alice in Wonderland that had all the stars in it, like Wizard of Oz, anything with music in it, I was like hyper attached to.
Sister Act, Sound of Music, thoughts?
All of it. Of it. Although I do remember choosing to see Beauty and the Beast over Sister Act is something I regret.
Okay. We all have them.
Yeah, but I mean, Belle was the princess I identified with the most as a reader. So,
The little French ingenue.
Yeah, and then you grow up and you're like, oh, she's a bitch with Stockholm syndrome. Anyway, appreciate your small town. What was I gonna say? So anyway,
so you're eating up all this Broadway, all this musical stuff. You know that you're going to go to New York, right? Or were you like, I don't know, LA?
I mean, New York, because theater started for me at like the age of 5.
Yeah.
So I did like a church musical called Copycats of the King, and that was like when I was like, oh, I'm better at this than everyone else. Like I need to do this because it's a church, no one can sing. And did children's theater in Orange County, and like I don't think I begged my mother to take me to like Les Mis auditions and do all of that stuff. But my mom was sort of like, you're already like a lot. I can't imagine what would happen if we like took you to these jobs.
You got validation. Yeah, you just.
yeah, exactly. Which I'm grateful for.
But Jonathan, what if they love you? We wouldn't be able to stand you.
Right. Well, and also that was the period of like the stuff in Hollywood starting to come out about the kids. That was the beginning of Corey Feldman and Corey Aim like coming out and talking about drug use, watching Drew Barrymore and all of that. And my mom felt distinctly worried about that. And so was like, we're not doing any of that stuff. You can do it if you want to be an adult, but kids can't handle it. Like, we're not dealing with that. So like, I don't know that I ever really, of course you're like, I want to be on Broadway, but you don't know what that means as a little kid. Whenever like I auditioned for like Big when it came to town, because I was like 12 by that time. I was, I think, the first like, I'm going to try. But I don't think it was probably until like high school that it was like, oh, New York. But through college, I actually was like, no, I'm going to go home to LA after college and like get my equity card. So then I could move to New York. And that ended up, my mom was like, why? Like, why? Just go to New York now. You've been saving money. Like, go, just do that instead.
Is your mother, can I just ask, because this sounds, was your mother very strong and like a matriarch of your family, and like she kind of had an answer for it just sounds, she kind of sounds like my mom.
They were equals, but my father's not artistic. He is when it comes to like woodworking, because he comes from an Amish family, but
cool.
like yeah. I
Interesting.
am one generation out of not being Amish.
He's
I bet you could
artistic
churn
with
butter like that.
wood.
I wish I could. I mean,
No, but
like,
she sounds like bullshit. Go do it. Go get him. Like, was she that kind of person?
Yes and no. My mom definitely always empowered me because I think she always felt the passion inside of me. Like,
And maybe it's something she didn't choose in life, but you were going towards that. So she was like,
maybe like,
I can vicariously live through my son doing this thing that maybe
I don't know.
I always wanted to do.
I never, as soon as she could take her hands off of it, like as soon as I could drive, she took her hands off of it. You know, that like she couldn't wait to hand it over to me. She's been very supportive. And there was a year after high school that I wanted to quit theater because I was like, it's defined me my whole life. And like, I'm more than that. And so she was sort of like, okay, yeah, I believe that. And so it was like, why don't we, fine, don't go to college, go to community college for a year and take some real classes and we'll see how you feel after that. And she was right.
Okay. And so you went to Pacific Conservatory, the Performing Arts in California, yeah?
I did because I grew up singing and dancing, and that is a very like hefty classical acting school. And that idea terrified me. Growing up a kid actor, like something that became clear in my teens is that you have to do more than emote. Like you can't just like, I'm crying or I'm mad now, like the things you learn as a kid, which is like to broadly express. And so like I felt like a weak actor and knew I couldn't go. Like I wanted to go to like school of acting, couldn't afford to go to New York to do that. And the Pacific Conservatory of the Performing Arts is if you live in California, it's only $8,000 for 2 years, plus the housing and all of that stuff. But so it gave me the ability to graduate without debt. And
do you agree that it doesn't really matter where you go? It's about what you do, where you are, and then what happens afterward to apply all that stuff in the real world?
I do wish, because I went to a performing arts high school, like they didn't just about Boston Conservatory, Michigan, Carnegie Mellon, like what the top like 10 schools are. So I know in my mind, I was like, who goes to college for theater? Like, I'm gonna go take classes and like become a star. That was sort of my feeling. And it wasn't until I left high school and saw my friends at schools that I was like, wow, they never really like I wish I would have known what to aim for. Like in my mind, it was maybe going to be Juilliard, but then when I realized my family couldn't afford it, like my literal whole life, I was trying to gear up to go. That was all I ever wanted. But it was one of those like, do we have that money? And my parents were like really like concerned about lifelong debt. Which I thank them for so wholly now. I have been able to live paycheck to paycheck and do follow my heart in my art. because I'm not saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. So like, even though I don't come from a rich family, I'm very grateful that they were at least financially sound enough to not do that to me.
Yeah.
And so like, I had never heard of the good school. I had never thought that I should be like getting great. I ditched school to go to Disneyland instead of worrying about my academia.
Same.
Yeah, like that's what you do.
We'd go to Disneyland to get lunch.
Yes. Or literally there'd be times where like me and my best friend Chelsea would like walk into the parking lot at the same time and like not even talk. We'd just like make eye contact and then just like get in someone's car and go to Disneyland for the day. What's funny though is I would ditch all of my academia but be back for the performing arts classes.
In college, we'd be like, oh, when this class is done, it sounds good. Let's go get a Monte Cristo sandwich over by Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah,
you'd have lunch, you'd do what Pirates, and then you go home.
Yep. I'd always get the clam chowder in a bowl. A Dole Whip. But to answer your question, I do think that it is about the work that is done at your college more than any name, because technique is about longevity. However, I do wish that I had had knowledge and access to what the schools are. One of my like most, I wouldn't say it's a painful story, but it's one of those like, wow, the world is wild. The world is wild. When I was in college, I did a production of Annie, and we hired a little girl who was local to play Annie. She was 9.5 years old. And
was she just a diva bitch?
No, she's incredible, and she's gonna be famous. Her name's Erica Olsen. I don't know if I say that name, and she was just in.
She's 9. She's like, I don't want all of this to define me.
No, she was literally like, I didn't want to do Annie, but I did it. I had to do it. The Pacific Conservatory of the Arts is also an equity theater, so like the teachers that are there act in the shows professionally at night, but teach you during the day, and you can be cast in shows. And I didn't want to be cast in Annie, but they forced me to because I was one of the few dancers that they had. And then this little girl made it worth it every day because she was she was a light. She was wonderful. Wow. However, the weird part of this is she grew up at Carnegie Mellon. And after the year she graduated, I was in final callbacks for Barry Mann replacement on the Beautiful tour. And I never saw who the Cynthias were that they were reading for final callbacks. But I saw the announcement, and that 9-year-old girl who had literally just graduated and moved here from Carnegie Mellon was Cynthia on that tour. And is she a star? Absolutely. But I do not doubt, as a blonde white woman, that graduating from Carnegie Mellon is helpful. You know what I mean? So I do wish someone would have like given me the like, if you really want to make it, these are and I want us to break that down as like a Broadway community. We need to stop just going to these schools for these kids. There's so much diverse talent all over this place. I had a casting job. I can vouch for the fact that there's Broadway level talent coming out of many universities. But I do wish I had that knowledge. Like, I think it's a double-edged sword about where you go. I am the most
grateful. A lot of like schools aren't geared towards the arts, so there's no one to tell you any of this. When you're in high school and you're looking at colleges to go to, usually, you do the shows there and you move on. You become an accountant.
Yeah. Or real estate. Yeah, there's so well where you went to school, the gist of it is, I'm getting the impression that you learned more outside.
No. PCPA taught me to act for sure. I am the most great. I find, this is going to sound pretentious, but I find myself more prepared often than many, like, especially young in my career. As an actor, I wouldn't say I owe them everything, but I owe them most things because they really, anyone listening, if you're not in college yet, look up PCPA, save yourself $1. And
Nice.
and go get a 4-year education in 2 years and maybe consider your degree later. I do regret not finishing my degree because it's only a certificate program. But I and my class has we graduated with 21 people, and 3 have already been on Broadway, 2 write for television, 1 produces, and me.
Right on.
Like they do good work.
So talk about when you were kind of heading out of college and going to be, you know, making this big step to New York. How did that process go? And what were the first kind of steps? Did you have much resistance, and as most people do, getting into a new market and starting?
Yeah, and when I first moved here, again, as someone who doesn't have a like financial support, the first year was literally like getting a job and figuring out. I lived in my brother's hallway closet, and I mean that like in the most literal sense. He lived in Midtown, and he had this hallway closet that was large enough for a twin bed that I could rent for $250 and get to live in Midtown. And so like, but I couldn't. That's not like super sustainable.
Thanks, brother. I'm out of the closet and in one again. Motherfucker.
I have to say it was pretty adorable. I like had my little. It had just enough space for a twin bed. It was like a big walk-in closet in the hallway. And had just enough.
Tom loves struggle. Bed. Just blood, sweat, and tears. He's
I'm like listening. I'm like, this is the shit that gets me through, man. Where you're like, you didn't live in a fucking closet, man. I did.
For real. And like it had enough room for that bed and a bookshelf. And so I got a futon mattress so it could be on the floor so I could like change standing on my bed. It was a wild young year. And my parents did something very kind for me. If I saved up enough money to move here, they offered to pay for dance class for a year.
Wow, that's
and
really nice.
Really kind of them because right as I moved, my father got a promotion, and something they always regretted is I have always been a natural dancer, but they could never afford to train me. And so in high school, a ballet studio took me on as like a free student, and I like became a dancer. And so they always felt when I was moving to New York, I think they felt like this will be, you know, the other thing that'll help you level up. My parents are the most amazing.
That's
people.
so nice. I hope my kid never becomes an actor, but if they do,
really God, same. God, same. I have always said like my biggest fear would be to adopt and like have the child be untalented but want to go into the arts. Oh God, what would you do?
Oh,
what would you do?
Oh, wouldn't that be something?
Because I don't want to be a monster, but I'm a real person. So
right.
I had a little casting job
Listen
for
to
a little
me,
while.
Sadie,
so I'd be like,
Sadie, pay attention to Daddy. Sadie, it's not going to happen, hon.
I actually watched my friend Val has a child who I actually think would be a good actor. But one day she runs a theater and her daughter was in the back and she was like, Mom, when are you going to put me in a show? And she had the best answer, which was, well, babe, do you want to you have to start singing lessons and that's every week. And then we have to start an acting class and that'll also be every week. I mean, you've got volleyball, soccer. And so that's a lot. You might have to choose. Do you want to do that more than these things? Because that's what it takes. We pay people. And her daughter was like, I guess not. End of discussion. I was like, taking note.
Yeah.
Other
things that diverge from the arts.
Got
it. But my first year in New York, I actually sort of hunkered down into dance class. I ended up dancing in a company for a little while. And it wasn't really until the like middle or end of my first year that I really started to try to hit the audition circuit. And then by then I had the best job at Broadway.com. My job was to make FedEx envelopes for the hotel packages that get sent out. That was it. And as long as things got done and were out by the time they needed to be out, my hours could be whatever I needed them to be. And so I was able to do the my very first year I did the they're all gonna know me. auditions, but when you're non-union, it's like mostly just sitting around in lobbies and like praying to be seen. And
I don't know how people
not
do
getting
that.
seen.
I mean, sometimes I'm on the equity like Facebook. Something pops up, like somebody posts something, and they're like, "Hey, so here's the deal. I've been waiting for about like 14 hours for this, blah blah blah," and it's just like, this is what you do every day. And I mean, I only did that about 24 times because I'm somebody who believes you got to try a long time before you say that wasn't my route. And I just had to do the, what do they call the EPAs, 6 a.m. kind of thing. But these people are doing this every day, every year for the first however many years they have before they get anything. And some maybe get through, but what the hell do these people...
I did it for that. I had a lot of fortitude for that first year, and some great things came of it. I got
really
like,
okay, good.
Oh yeah. Like
some people don't realize that, like when you're first starting out to be a professional actor, when the idea of jobs comes up, it's like, well, there's so much groundwork and hustle to doing all of this, and most of that, a lot of that, is in the hours of 9 to 5. So trying to find a job, which is like, well, you have to have a job. Well, yes, but I'm also trying to do this thing, and a lot of it.
I have another full-time job that is.
But you know what I mean? It's like they butt heads, and I have known several people that I went to Circle in the Square with who are stupidly talented, but they got caught in jobs where they were like, I can't audition. I would be fired if I was like, hey, can I?
My answer was always like, you get fired. Get fired. What?
But not everyone's in the position. I haven't had healthcare in so many years, and I'm very lucky that
Now so much stuff is self-tape, right? You can do that at home, and but like
back in the
day before COVID, you had to go somewhere to audition, and it's like a lot of people were like, I physically can't leave my job to do that. And if I even asked, they would be like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like,
quit right
no.
Now? Yeah.
Like, well, you got to pick one. So it's kind of a, I don't think a lot of people realize there is these opposing forces of like trying to have money to, I don't know, eat and have a roof over your head and feel safe. And
it was so stressful.
But then you're also trying to do this thing that is during those hours. So it's like they conflict, and it's kind of a minefield to get through.
Yeah.
And
that's why so many actors
take out so many people, and they're like, they just fall out of it because whatever job they have kind of became not a trap, but it's like, well,
it is.
You fall into a trap.
And I think it's why so many actors end up in the service, because it's the only job. My partner's going through this because he just took on a full-time job managing, now teaching at an aerial studio, moving from the service world, but it now is 5 days a week, 9 to 5 hours, and not nearly as much money as 3 days of bartending.
Right.
Because that's the service world pays, but kills your soul.
It sure does.
So you move to New York, you start going on the equity auditions. Did representation come into the picture at any point?
It's so funny. I've always been really confident and terribly afraid. It's like the crux of my career. I come from a very fearful, cautious family. And so that like permeates in my blood of like, but what's the worst outcome? Because I never wanted to pursue an agent until I was equity. Just because the money in non-union theater never felt good enough to me to give 10% of it away.
I had a game plan, and it was like SAG first and then representation, because quite frankly, no one's going to talk to you in New York if you're like, I want to do on screen. Are you a union member? No.
Right.
So what am I supposed to do with you? Like,
right. But Yeah, so representation actually happened by a fluke. I still have this agent too. A girl that I went to high school with was assisting manager, and I had done like 2 years of not auditioning for ensemble roles anymore, and like trying to pull myself out of being a dancer in the chorus, because I was like, I was never the guy that picked it up absolutely perfectly in auditions. It was just a really great way to be seen as non-union, because there are less dancers than there are singers in this world. And I had just done a production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat as Joseph. Like, I would say my first like big actually playing a part. And I posted some videos on YouTube and built a website. And she wrote me and was like, hey, I'm working for an agent. Do you need one? And I was like, yes, I desperately, like at that point, I had been like wanting to pursue it, but like, I don't know, and I still actually struggle with this, like having them send me appointments for things that I don't want, and like the dealing with paying them for things they don't get you, and like that kind of stuff always scared me in the earlier part of my career, and kept me sort of like, oh, and like, what if I disappoint them? You know, it's always a big part of why I was scared to get one.
Are you ready to sign? I'm just so scared. Oh man,
yeah,
that's okay.
You.
Just put just the pen on the. Yeah, that's it. Just write your name.
And now I wouldn't.
I make you mad. What are you talking about?
Right? Now I regret not doing it.
I come from a beautiful family. My father was Amish. I don't want to get into it.
Yeah, now I regret not doing it sooner.
Of course.
Yeah, representation came, I think I was 29. So and I moved here when I was 22, 23. So it took a few years, and I never did the rigmarole of like the whole, I mean, I had
pay to
like,
play, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no. The only one I ever did that for was Mary Sugarman, because I wanted her to know that I should be Frankie Valli, even though I don't look like him.
So talk to us about the years before, because what we're getting into is kind of the crux of this episode is creating your own work. And sometimes, correct me if I'm wrong, this is just what I believe, but when a decision is made and action is taken, there's something that happened way before that led you to that moment. For me, I had to change a lot of things about a lot of things. And it usually had to come to a point where, whether months or even years, I found myself in a really dark place. Nothing was happening, fill in the blank. So I had to take action and make a decision. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So for you, between that time where you got signed and when Patti came out, how was that? You did book a couple of shows, but obviously you made the decision to like take it up a notch. So were things kind of stutter stepping in those years?
I mean, you hit, it's not even that it was stutter stepping. So since I've moved to New York, I've been in callbacks for things that I want, and final callbacks. And I always say that what would happen is I ended up being the fourth guy. First guy gets it, second guy gets the ensemble lead, third guy gets the swing understudy, and then I don't get anything. And I knew part of that was not having an agent. But I knew that the other part of that was that they don't know me, and I don't have the time to make them know me. I can't, I don't have the money to audition all the time. You know, that Broadway.com job ended up like being absorbed. It became a bigger job, and like my hours got locked in. And so I had to quit that, go into the service world. Didn't have the time to show up to every EPA you burn out on all of that. And I just felt like my career I was playing leads in regional theaters, but like couldn't get beyond that. Like I didn't know how to make them know me. And like things would happen where I'd be in callbacks with one casting director for something and then not see them for 2 or 3 years. And I'm a character actor. Wearing glasses changes my whole face. Having a mustache changes my whole face. So they like never remember me until like much later in the process. And they're like, wait, you were in final callbacks for this, right? Oh, that's right. I knew you from somewhere. And so I was like, how do I make these people know me? Like, or like, how do I get them to see something that's not in the room that interests them enough to like have something to talk about rather than like, I haven't seen him. I wanted them to know my work in a way that they can't know, even if you've auditioned over and over again. And I have always done impressions. It's like, it was never anyone important. It was always like teachers or people in shows or people in tours that I'd seen. And so when I figured out that I could do Patti and she became this like party trick amongst my friends, I had originally made them a Christmas, it's literally why it's Inappropriate Patti, why I sing songs that she would never sing, is because people would always be like, oh my God, what does she sound like singing Umbrella? Like, and be like this like party thing of like, oh, here we go, I'm going to do a Patti set. And so one year for Christmas, we normally, this clique of that loved to make that party trick happen, I made them a little YouTube video, because I wasn't going to be there for Christmas. I was actually going to go home. And so it was me singing Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas as Patti, Bernadette, and Carol Channing. And I posted it right before I got on the plane, and I got off the plane and it had 2,500 views, which at that time on YouTube was like a lot for one day. And it just like had a little like of a spurt.
Right.
But I was like, wow, that's interesting. Like I have tons of other videos up there from auditions and things, because that's before you needed to hide them. And like none of it gets any attention. That's so crazy that this just like, how did that happen? And so I sat on it for about a year or two, and my friends were like urging me, like, put this out there. And I reached that like, God, I've got to do something in my career to like change the narrative, to like get somewhere new. And that's when
What year is this?
2023.
Let's see. I did that first
I've
video.
been confused for 2 weeks.
I did that first video in 2013, but the first time I ever posted on Instagram, I think was the very end of 2015 or 2016. I think it was 2015.
What was like the before we had TikTok, Vine? Would this have been around like Vine days?
It would have been.
That was 14, 13, maybe 12, 13, and then it kind of fizzled off.
Well, so the reason I chose Instagram is I didn't want to do YouTube, because YouTube, you need to make content over like 2 minutes, and like in order to, it needs to be more long form, in my opinion. So I loved the idea that Instagram limited me to a minute. Because I think it's a joke that works the best in short form,
Right.
because you can get a couple jokes in before it gets tired, and then it's over.
Yep.
And it also felt like less commitment. YouTube, similarly to TikTok, you have to keep like generating in order for the algorithm to like sort of notice you. I have no interest. I had no interest in being like a generator of content. What I really initially started this off as, I wanted it to be my dirty little secret. Like, you Google it and you're like, oh, what is this? Oh, weird. Look at what this guy
like
can
an
do.
under
That's
the
weird.
radar type thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like when it reached 600 people, I was like, nailed it. That's exactly what I wanted it to be. Like, got it. Like, and now that's just enough for people to like be, initially I didn't even start. The first couple of videos I posted were the ones, because I would sometimes send them to my friends, like being in my bathroom, I'd just like record a couple things. So like the first like 3 videos are just things I already had that I was like, I'll put this up. Like no forethought whatsoever. And it wasn't until like after I was like, nailed it. It was actually Facebook where it really started to take off. I think one of the videos got like 10,000. I think it was Hamilton that got like 10,000 views. And I was like, whoa, this is speaking to people somehow. This makes them laugh. And I have many theories on why. But it wasn't until then that I was like, oh, I guess I should like pursue like elevating this.
You're like, am I the moment?
No, it was more like, I guess
I might be the moment.
It's not even that. It was more like, oh, I guess this is the thing. Like, oh, is this?
No,
the thing?
it was
like,
a realization of like, well, it's clearly resonating.
Yeah, well, and especially as an actor who's been trudging for so long, like you spend so much time hoping that people will notice or acknowledge the work that you're doing. And like, there came a point where like, actually the reason I work at Don't Tell Mama, like Michelle Dowdy is one of the first people that followed me outside of my immediate circle.
We
Where
love her.
What a champ.
but like, I remember when it started to like reach people I didn't know and like was receiving comments. And then when like some famous people started to like creep in and like suddenly some casting directors and things like that started to follow. And it was like, oh, this, you know what I mean? Like I do this stoned in my bathroom.
Little secret?
Yeah. Well, that's the, yeah. It's like, I literally like take a hit off a blunt and I'm like, you know, it'd be hilarious. And then like cut up some clothes from my closet that I'm not wearing anymore and turn it into a costume. And like, it was wild. Like the moment it changed though, was when Julie Klausner mentioned it on her podcast. That's when it went from being like 1,200 people to like suddenly being like 3,000. And it was literally overnight. And then after that, oh God, why is the name floundering from the NPR cultural moment, happy hour? Someone on an NPR podcast, Glenn Wielden. Wielden's the last name. Why? It's a G name. Why can't I think of it? I listened to the podcast. But he mentioned it, and that's when it was like, oh, okay, now I've got to like start. That year I like pumped out, like I normally did like 3 videos a year. And that year I was like 6.
Double.
Woo, yeah.
You know, I find your restraint with it so fascinating and a little like inspired, because I feel like most people that would go to your head and you would turn out so much content that it would become almost, how do I say, unspecial.
Well, that's
if you're not always too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing. But if like what you said, you're putting out 3, it makes the event so much like we have a new one. Whereas if it's like every other day, it burns itself out. You know what I mean? And
there's only
I
so
love
many
that you weren't like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do 2 videos a week. You were like, no, actually. I love that.
Some of that comes from like necessity of like, I'm busy. But a lot of it does come from like, there are only so many like vowels that can be funny. You know what I mean? There's only so many tricks I'm using to sound like her. And so like, I feel like it's why I've struggled to put together. I'm working on trying to write my own show with it, because I feel like that's the next solution. I need to be live at like 54 and do that thing.
Hell yeah, man. When can that happen?
I'm working on trying to get it done within the year. Like
for you.
Like spring is my sort of goal. I'm terrified of it. Part of why I went to go work at Mama's is it's my free MFA in cabaret. But part of dealing with that is, how do you make one joke last for so long? And so part of my keeping it to myself, in fact, Ryan Murphy's producer, when they initially followed me, he sent me a message like right after they both followed me, being like, Ryan and I are just dying over your content. We need more. And I was like, but I don't want to oversaturate. Like that's at the end of the day, I wanted it to be this like, oh, it happened, rather than it being like, oh, here it is again.
And good for you for not being a whore and just saying, oh, okay, more. All right. You know, you had the arrogance, kind of. Yeah, come on in. You had the arrogance to, and in a good way, there's good arrogance and bad, but to be like, you know what? I'm really not wanting to like do that. That to me, if I'm casting something and someone's telling me, actually, I probably don't want to because this, it's like, oh, good. You're not just wanting to sell yourself out at the closest second, you know?
Well, listen, if he would have been like, if you produce more content, we'll put you in a show, I'd have been like, legs up.
Give me the doobie, baby. Give me 2 doobies. Let's do this.
Like, let's be real. But but I think the part of my response was more like, oh, don't think I'm lazy. Just like know that it's like me trying to not
Gotcha.
make it
Still, it worked.
make it not funny anymore.
Right.
I appreciate you and Ryan love it, but I'm very busy. So sorry.
I'm a waiter. Save me.
and for about a week's salary, he did. So tell us about that experience. Just take us all the way through.
Man. Okay, so they followed me and wrote me, and like literally the joke between my partner, my hands froze. I still have a screenshot of the day that he followed me. And
The message he sent you is so fucking chill.
Well, and that's a
It's
year.
so
That's
casual.
2 years. That's 2 years later. So he followed
Oh.
me 2 years ago, or even longer, probably now. It was like right at the start of the pandemic, right? Which there's so much the pandemic took because of what Patti was building up to at that point. Like I was starting to get called for jobs acting wise that ended up not happening.
I thought you meant the real Patti LuPone for a second. I was like, why?
God,
What
I
happened
wish.
to her? Oh, Patti,
but I don't think Ryan Murphy would have ever found me if he didn't have the time to sit down and like scroll Instagram or TikTok or wherever he found me for a while. So he followed me right at the beginning of the pandemic. His producer followed me right after, and he messaged me, and the like joke between my partner and I became like, Ryan Murphy saved me, write me into American Horror Story. Like that was my ongoing, because it's one of my favorite franchises of his, and one my partner and mine too.
Oh, how funny!
And so like it was a running joke, and we can get into like manifestation in a second. But my running gag was always, I want either she possesses me and I like become her, or I want to be her son. Like those are like the two things that I would like. And so 2 years go by, and like there's no interaction. In fact, there was a moment where Ryan Murphy, I guess, had cleaned out his Instagram, unfollowed everyone that he was following, deleted all his Instagram stuff, because he followed me again. Oh, am I buffering? No.
You're good.
He followed me again, and I was like, oh, weird, he unfollowed me. And then I like saw on Twitter that he had like the American Horror Story fans were like, oh my God, he deleted everyone and he unfollowed everyone. So like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, and initially I was like one of 175 people that he followed. This refollow, I was like one of 30. And I was like, oh my God, like he specifically like went back to follow me as like one of 30 people. Like wild.
What a compliment.
Truly. And like, honestly, at that point, enough, you know
That's
what I mean?
it.
Like there have been so many lovely, wonderful people that I admire that have followed me that like, for me, this doesn't make me a lot of money. It doesn't make me any money except for gigs like this.
Right.
And so like the recognition in that way has been like back patting. And so that was definitely like, made it, you know?
You know who
and
else
so-
needs a back pat?
Who?
Your friends who said you
Oh.
gotta do it. You have
Paul,
to do this,
Efren,
and
and
you're
Omar.
like, okay, fine.
Anytime I've had an interview or anything, I always make sure to mention
Jonathan,
Paul, Efren,
how
and
many, Tom, how many fucking episodes do we have where somebody's career outcome became incredible, and they're like, it started from this friend being like, just go to the fucking audition on a
Totally.
day that I didn't want to do it at all. And they were like, just go. And that one audition was like, you know,
Totally.
the turning point of everything. And they're like,
Yeah.
to be honest, if I hadn't gone that day or done that tape or whatever the hell it was, probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah, sometimes they're there to do the things that we can't for ourselves, because for some reason we'll look to other people for the validation of our talents rather than inside our own selves.
Well, and sometimes it takes someone seeing something out. Like I knew that they enjoyed what I had, and like were enjoying sort of exploiting this little parlor trick. But like it never occurred to me that it should be something that I should put out there. And when a friend tells you to go to an audition, it's because they're hearing that that's a role that you'd be right for, whether you think so or not. Sometimes it just takes, you can't. What's that thing about the true mirror that's out there? Like we truly don't see ourselves. Like we never can see ourselves. And so I feel like sometimes, yeah, of course it comes from a friend or a family member who really gets to see their version of you, which is different from your version of you.
And especially something like this where it's like, you know, it's a parlor trick. You're like, is it funny like in a good way, or is it funny in like a
clown?
You know what I mean?
Well,
It's
especially this, because part of why I think it's so successful is it is a very shameful part of me. It is the gay little boy that in his room was wearing towels as wigs and
And
acting
how
out.
many of them are there? How many that was me? You know?
Yeah, how many of us? And I think that's honestly more than just the fact that I'm a male who sings in Patti LuPone's range with like some of her affectations. I think the other half of this is that my following is like 55% men. And I think that extra boost on that side is because we as little homosexuals did that. Like it's something that I feel, even if you weren't, I feel like we all, even straight people, spend time imagining in their bedroom.
And the fact that I think the respect that people got from you committing, throwing it out there, like being that, showing that side of you or whatever, shamelessly, a shameful demonstration, shamelessly, you know, demonstrated. I really love that, you know, and people, I think that like 90% of the people just don't say or do the things that they really do want. And when people do, they look at it and say, I respect you. I'm following, I'm watching. I love that because I can live through this truth because I can't do it myself.
Right. Or even, just I think relating to it, even if it's something you can do, because there are people who wear their shame out there that I think it's just, I think that's the connection thing.
Oh,
so Ryan Murphy refollowed you.
Right. So he refollowed me, and then like 3 months later, I was sitting on the couch and I get a DM. My DMs, I'm so terrible at checking them, extremely terrible at checking them. I'm overwhelmed. It's just like, I don't even remember why I opened it. And the first thing that I saw was, you know how you see just a little bit of the sentence, but like I recognized his like black and white headshot, and was like, and it said, "Hey, Ryan Murphy here, ... You couldn't see any more. And I was like, I
thank God for that little blue check mark that you're like, I'm not being pranked.
Right.
I mean, trust. I mean, I went on a whole, like, is this the real account immediately after reading the message? But like, I put it down for, I want to say.
If it was Twitter, you'd have been like, delete. You can buy that.
But literally, I put the phone down for like almost an hour because I couldn't. I was like, I don't want to know that. I don't
trust myself in this state right now. I need to.
Well, I was like, whatever that is probably demands an immediate reply, and I need to calm down.
Right.
Because even if it's, I mean, basically, because even if it's just like,
babe, I need you to read this to me while I try to breathe.
Right. But it was one of those, like, even if it's just, hey, I think you're great. Like, I need to like not be in the state that I'm in to respond to whatever this is. And so when I opened it and it was like, hey, Ryan Murphy here. I'm writing you a scene with Patti LuPone, top secret, for this season of American Horror Story, filming in New York City this summer. Are you interested? Which, like, what? Like, truly beyond, like, my partner and I had been joking about it, but like, honestly, the most that I was hoping for from this account was that I'd walk into auditions for shows that I'd want, and they'd be like, "Oh, I love what you do. Now do this thing." Like they would have like, and so for it to
would
be
get you in the door for something else, but it's something that,
And so to have him write, and in the message, he wrote that it was going to be that Patti LuPone hires me to be her. So like literally writing this impression, this thing, I never thought that someone would take, I've always said, I don't know how to make money with her other than doing a real show, because I don't want endorsements. I don't want to be like quote unquote influencer, no interest in that. And so like, how does it turn into money? No one can where does it go from here? So to have him literally write, I mean, the character's name is Inappropriately Kathy. My mustache was written into the show. It was truly wild. So he writes that message. I think I wrote back in all capital letters, OMG.
Okay.
I think I wrote OMG. And I believe the sentence I wrote back to him is, I'm working really hard to not overstate my interest. I would love to. And he just wrote, great, we'll be in contact in a few weeks. And that was the last.
That was probably
heard.
the longest few weeks of your life.
It was 2 months. It was 2 months. And it was one of those, like, he wrote top secret. So like I told my partner, like, hey, Ryan Murphy wrote me about maybe writing me into something, like, but didn't. So like, I'm like tight-fisted. Like, I don't want to say anything about it because if I say anything about it, like, that's just going to make it all come crumbling down.
And also, doesn't it sound so Hollywood that this would happen and then never come to fruition?
Oh,
Right.
up until the point.
And then you have this DM and you're like, this is one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. Nothing happened.
Everyone literally kept being like, because I kept the secret all the way through. The only person that knew was my partner. Because on the day of, I had to be like, everyone kept saying like, God, you kept this secret so well. And I was like, to protect myself, like, for all I know, it's going to end up on the cutting room floor. Like, I don't want to be like, I'm an American Horror Story. I'm an American Horror Story. Watch it Tuesday. You know what I mean? Wednesday.
Even when
like,
I book, Jonathan, I don't tell anybody about anything until it airs because, like, come on, we've done this before. We know what happens.
And I've never, but I've watched it happen to friends that are like, just kidding, on Facebook, my whole part, I thought I was integral, but my part was cut. So like, I truly, so those 2 months, like, I started, by the end of it, I was like, it's not happening. They figured out like that this is a stupid idea and that they can't like fit that in. And like,
just as Jonathan was letting it go.
Yeah, literally. I got a message from the producer that had contacted me before, being like, hey, what's your email address so we can hire you? And so I can send it to casting so we can officially hire you. I gave him my email address and was like, is this real? And I was a little more like less formal than I was talking to Ryan Murphy. Like, is this real? And he was like, yes, and be proud. This comes from something you created. You made this.
So he knew the weight of this, you know?
Oh, yeah. I think, and he, getting back to the manifestation of it, he was like, I've been plying Ryan for the last 2 years to write you into American Horror Story. But initially, I had been pitching you as her son, but this is so much better. And I was like, wow, like that is literally what I had like been saying. Is, I mean,
that's been on my mood board since I was 10.
Like literally. And like, she didn't possess me, but I did be her for her on.
Oh, wow.
So what's so wild about this is not only the show and Ryan and because of something that you created, but the thing that you were doing, you got to work with that person. That's fucking crazy.
It was
like, there's a video of you in the makeup trailer meeting Patti, and it's just like,
and it's so perfectly anticlimactic.
That's like beyond comprehension. What?
I said, and it's so perfectly anticlimactic. It was exactly what I needed it to be.
Let me ask you this, Jonathan. Speaking of this anticlimactic and the mood and this and the vibe and how you got on the day, first I don't know how long you were there, but I do know that whenever I was on TV, maybe the first and second time, I blacked out because of the adrenaline. There was so much going on in my head that, like, thank God I only had
total
one line.
Blackout. No,
well, but let me ask you this, Jonathan.
Total blackout.
Let me ask you this though: was it easier because you had a home that you were operating in, that you had? It almost maybe perhaps gave you some comfort. No, you blacked out. Great.
No.
A big old shake of the head.
No,
absolutely.
because first of all, I sang live. And
heavens.
They did take me to a studio and record just in case anything went wrong with sound and all of that. Everything was like a list of firsts. I've never done television. I've never sung on television. I've never worked with Patti LuPone. Like
check.
So yeah, so many things. I had never gone into a recording studio. We went to Power Station, which is like where every Broadway I was like in the studio being like, wow. Yeah, cool. Just like probably Sutton Foster was here last week. Into the Woods was there the week before. You know what I mean? It's like truly that stuff was wild. But also costume fittings. I tried on Patti's actual costumes, but there's a SAG rule that you can't wear someone else's costumes. Otherwise, I would have worn her dresses. It was all wild. Right. It was all super wild. Day of, there's an earpiece, so no one else can hear the music. Only I could hear the music. So like, I actually really hate the anything goes shot because I can tell that I am the first song was playing so quietly in my ear. And I was too new to be like, I need more until the second scene. Like working with an earpiece, learning, I've taken an on-camera class. So like, I understood what was happening, but like not really at all.
Luckily, though, you still had the world though of music. It was a little heightened.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm doing it in front of Patti LuPone, and like I definitely hear from myself as my own worst critic that I'm not hitting the impression as hard as I normally would hit it. Like I definitely was very conscious of not offending her, even though like I did what I was supposed to.
Oh, I see.
Do there, but it wasn't it. I do it with.
If she turned back to you and was like, "Don't you have more in you?" and you were like,
"No," but like that moment's my favorite. I wish she would have been meaner. It wasn't quite home because I do it with a wink and a nod. When I do it in life and in the videos, it's like maybe one step further than a realistic impression. And they asked me not to do that. They asked me to try to land on something realistic, but to still breathe. Like the director was like, I was told to let you do your thing. So I'm going to let you do your thing.
That's pretty cool.
Literally the choreographer for the second number in the second episode called me to ask how I envisioned it. The hair people called me to find out. The amount
of trust and love of what you created. Not only did they hire you, they literally wanted your input because you made something so crystallized that they didn't want to fuck with it. And they were hiring that. Not literally like do your Patti impression and like sign out at the end of the day.
They asked for lists of songs that fit into a certain genre, and then Patti herself chose the 2 songs that I did, and like all the costume fittings and things were like, "Is this you? Is that like?" It was so like you're here. I wrote in my thank you on Instagram that like I felt like a Make-A-Wish kid, and I really mean that. Like it was literally like. The day of filming, I was warned by the producer that had been in contact. Tanase Popa had been like the person sort of personally handling me as Ryan's conduit. And
you're like, when is someone going to tell me I'm so brave and that it's going to be okay? Clearly, I'm dying soon.
Right. Truly. Did I have cancer? Why are you looking so nice? But on day of filming, he warned me right before we were going to set. He was like, this is going to be a very crowded set because everyone is so excited for what's going on today. And like everyone was pumping me up. The reason the video happened of me meeting her in the wig room is because literally that wig artist Bobby had been following me and was like, when I found out that you were going to be on this, he was like, I kept saying that I am going to be the one to be there when you guys meet. I want to be there for that moment. He had purchased so they asked me what my wig was so that they could buy my exact wig and like refine it for the show. And they, they wrote me into it's so bizarre. And so they bought extra of my wigs so that people could wear them on set that day. Like it was truly.
Oh, they were such fans.
The most wild. Although Joe Mantello was the one thing I was not emotionally prepared for him to be there that day.
Really?
Because like I imitate Patti, and Patti is like my queen. I worship her talent. Joe Mantello's who I want to be. You know what I mean? Like I directing, acting when you want. Like that's so. I literally was like, "You're gonna be here today." Like, just standing in the back until they film your one entrance into this thing. Like,
Right.
oh my god, it was.
It's just so this is why we wanted to have you on, because it's just this story is so like stranger than fiction, and it's like you hear something like this and it's mind-blowing, and it's out of something that you created with a lot of love and not this like grand plan of seeking fame. And it was, like you said, a parlor trick, and then it leads to this, and it's incredible. And it just goes to show you never know.
Who's
Literally.
watching?
You never know, because so many times, there's just so many people online that you put stuff out there and you think it's just going to the ether.
And most of it is. So much of your stuff has gone to the
yes.
ether, like before this. And I also, the one thing that I wish to impart to like every actor out there is the words that freeze me in my tracks are create your own work. That is not something that I ever considered myself capable of in any way, shape, or form. I would love to write, but I don't have the focus. I can direct and have an outside vision, but I would like to have somebody else's work when it comes to putting a show together. Like up until recently, I've never wanted to act my own story or like tell my own story. And so like it never intrigued me to do like a one-man show or a cabaret show. And so like I create your own work means something different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I would love for actors to not think of what they can't do, and maybe not even think about what you can do, and more focus on what it is that they bring to the table that other people don't bring, and how to get that in the world. What's the platform to get that out in the world? Because it doesn't look the same for everyone,
Yeah, you're right. You're looking at other people and how they pump out stuff, and you're like, but I can't do that. It's not you. Why do you think that you can't? Like, that's fine. That's not you. You can do 6 videos in a year. It's fine.
I have a friend, Steve Raymond, he's got like 3 million on TikTok and is now, I think it's starting to like blow up. We knew each other during Bells Are Ringing. And he was like, I guess I got to get into this online game. And didn't know what to do. But he knows that one of the ways that he makes his friends laugh is he kind of does this like awkward character who makes bad jokes and like just slices a room in half into like, or kills a conversation. Like, and he loves it. He's like, it's kind of an Andy Kaufman sort of thing. And so he bit
is like,
and he does it
the awkwardness of like
him just being like, ha 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 ha. Yeah, that's funny because you put a wig on and sang like Patti. Like he's very like, and it just like kills comedy. So everyone calls him Stove Raymond, and so he has put that on Instagram, or not on. Well, it is on Instagram, but on TikTok, and like things are coming from it, and it's just like a stupid little character that and I think he's also someone that would not necessarily see himself as someone who's like gonna be a content creator. Like he was sort of, I think, similar to me, just trying to like, how do I like get some following so that like I can like be seen in a new light? And so I wish that something that I think is great about the online medium is the pressure of like, and now you have a show that you have to sell. Are you selling a sitcom, or is it a cabaret show? Are you writing songs or any, instead you get to like feature this like weird part of yourself that an audience might connect to.
It's like we have so much in ourselves that no one else has. And if you're not doing something, whether it's playing music at a small club or painting or doing something, it's going untapped, and your truth and the beauty that is inside of each and every one of you, which is a completely different beauty, is not getting demonstrated or shown, so it's just, you pick your medium. And for us, luckily, we have phones that are essentially video cameras.
Right.
I mean, they are video cameras, but they're essentially Hollywood video cameras. And the ability to just create whatever we want. And it's almost like, how do you not do it?
Totally. And I still, I produced 2 videos this year because I've been busy, and doing Patti Live is really like filling up the part of me that feels the need to make videos. And I've been sort of struggling also with what being on social media means, and like to our society and things like that. However, it is also an extremely beautiful tool that allows us to do these things. I've been like gearing my mental state up to start producing again, and like start burning that candle again. Also, American Horror Story, we didn't even get into it, was like also kind of rough at the same time in the aftermath, because the second director, who I actually think the episode turned out better, was a lot firmer and harsher, and like, so I was certain that I was just like disappointing him and failing him the whole time.
That happens. That's a very typical thing.
And here's what I'll say for Miss Patti LuPone. She could feel him. Like, he asked me to stop doing the impression. My note from Ryan Murphy was to speak all my lines as Patti LuPone. And that director asked me not to. And I didn't feel famous enough to be like, well, Ryan Murphy said though. And so I did what he said.
That's funny because I have notes. They're from Ryan.
Let me pull up just my phone. And so I spent.
So you didn't get to do that on that for him
on the second episode. I didn't get to fulfill that note. I did it in the first episode.
Okay.
And they were filmed in the same day. I left the experience sure that I failed, and sure that it would be cut, and sure that Ryan Murphy would be disappointed in me. And like, it kind of led me to not wanting to produce Patti work at all for a little bit, just because I was so like inside embarrassed for myself. Because I was like, I wrote the producer and was like, hey, the second scene, I didn't end up doing the lines because I'm from the theater world and the director said not to. And so I did that. But I'm like now in my brain realizing that the person who I care the most about is you. And he was like, it's fine. If it's bad, we'll fix it in post. He was very lovely about it.
Right.
But I was like, sure. I was like, they hate me. It's over. They're just going to cut it. They're just going to. And so and I think it's important to say all those things out loud, because the incredible highs, like this is the best experience of my life. And like also came with probably one of the lowest lows after, because it was like, I ruined it. I ruined the opportunity. Like,
congratulations. You had a typical acting experience.
Right.
Everything's
Exactly.
great. And then it was awful. That's what happened in Maisel. I was like, the director was like, less. And at the end of it, I wasn't doing anything
yes,
I did in the audition.
That is exactly
and then
what
I
happened.
left like, that was fun. But when you watch it, I'm going to do nothing, which means that that's my art.
But let me
I
ask
was
you
told
this,
not to do.
just because I would love the affirmation on it. When you watched it back, I watched it and I was like, I see you, director. Thank you for I'm taking that with me.
In the moment, of course, since I had been through this game a little bit, I said to myself, it's going to look different than what you felt. But at the same time, if I watch it, I would say honestly that I was holding back a lot by being limited by a director. And you're not famous. You can't be like, actually, I kind of want to do this. You'd have 4 series regs like, look at the balls on this fucking guy. Right. So it happens though, man, but the beauty is we can fix it in post. We can adjust it to make it wonderful no matter what happens.
Totally. But yeah, it definitely killed the spirit bit inside of me for a little bit. And literally I was sweating until it aired. And in fact, the week leading up to knowing when my episode was going to be, I hadn't heard from the producer at all since our last interaction. And like, that's the other thing I'd been like hearing from him since he emailed me or asked for my email, I had heard from him like every day until the last day of filming, and then never again.
Right,
basically.
of course.
So I was like, I really did botch it. Like, there's no like watching it in post and hilarious.
God bless Jonathan. No one gives a shit about anybody.
No one gives,
you know, like no one cares
nobody
about
gives a fuck.
you.
Of course, and like I knew that
Right.
consciously, but I was absolutely sure that I was going to be cut, or that it was at least going to be minimized to like a second. Which they had told me, like, we're going to record a minute of singing. It might be 20 seconds. We'll see. The second episode I knew was going to be, because of how it was structured, that it's going to be the whole thing. I knew that I was going to be the opening shot. So I knew they'd keep all of that, or cut the whole bit altogether. And so,
Actually, the show's been canceled before it aired.
right. Or just be like, we don't need that opener. We'll just take more time somewhere else. And it wasn't until like the week of, the producer finally wrote me and was like, hey, are you ready to see yourself on television next week? I hope you're excited.
That's actually really sweet.
Yeah. I cannot stress how lovely from him to makeup. I mean, even the way Ryan contacted me, he even commented on and this is when I was like, okay, I did okay. He commented on my thank you post being like, you are an icon. And I was like, okay, I didn't ruin everything.
That should be in your fucking Instagram bio. Quote, you're an icon.
Thank
Ryan
you.
Murphy.
Yeah. It all came, and now, which is why I'm like, okay, now I can like get over that and like move on with that. Although it's an interesting place to be in, because I'm like, where do you go from here?
I think
like the best thing that ever happened.
I think a one-man show would be killer.
Oh, yeah.
That's such a great idea, and it's something that you can control, like this parlor trick has always been. It's been in your control.
Well, that I took the job at Mama's because I wanted to know, can I sing 13 songs in a row? And also like how I've always known how to banter, but like, how do you lift up material with banter and being yourself and like have it not come off as like phony and I would say after a year of working there, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm not scared of this anymore. Cause I'm happy to do things scared. I don't want to do them terrified.
Right.
So, now it no longer terrifies me.
I respect you so much, Jonathan. Like not only for getting up and facing, like filming and like throwing out your truth and just throwing up something out there out into the world is actually really, really admirable and admirable. And I never saw it until recently when I realized that I was just so scared to put things out there. And when I saw everyone doing it, it's like, I respect you for doing that. And that's inspiring me to do it. And secondly, I respect, this trudge, which you used that word, trudge. And that's what this acting life is. It's this long trudge. But I don't know if you know the definition of trudge. And I was surprised when I heard this, but to trudge is to walk with purpose. It's not to walk with struggle but it's to walk with purpose every day. Maybe I'm not killing it today, but I'm walking with purpose to my side job, to the audition, and I'm just getting up and doing it. I'm going to take the active steps to do things. And if I'm not, I'm going to choose to do them. But I respect you for doing that and like making something happen out of fucking thin air. There is nothing more respectable than making your own business and it doing something amazing for you.
Thank you. I don't know that I could have ever set out to do it. If I'd have started with that intention, I'd have failed a long time ago.
Right. I think a lot of people can take a lot of strategies that you used, including, I don't need to be this content creator. I can just throw some stuff out and kind of apply it to their own perspective and individual path. Because like you said, everybody is different, which means that you're going to have a completely different presence online. You don't have to be the guy that has 3 million that's doing 3 videos a day.
Totally. You know? I also look at someone like Ellery Ward, who before she ever started covering Sondheim songs with her guitar, was doing normal social media trends and then started playing Sondheim on her guitar. And that led people. And like, that's something she recorded in her closet. You know what I mean? It's like, there is something
specificity is the key here.
I think that's part of it, but I also think
there's just so much stuff that's all the same.
Totally. But I also think it's a part of like the thing that you do alone, the thing that's personal that you're passionate about. You know what I
Yep.
mean? The thing
That's right, John.
the part of you, it's a vulnerable thing, right? Like she says all the time she was terrified to play guitar in person because she knew she wasn't a great guitarist, but she knew she loved doing her Sondheim covers. And so to have the ability for me, like I've always been this fucking homosexual, like gesture, you know what I mean? Like in my friends, like always the one to do a bit for a joke and like really carry it to the end, and like putting that out into the world in a way that was vulnerable, which was to allow people to see. I've made my career off of playing straight dudes and I love it. I love the acting challenge. So like to let people see the like I mean, I let them see me when I audition because whatever, but I'm still gonna, so to like have the strength to be like, yeah, and you're still gonna call me in to kiss a girl after,
Right.
even though you've seen me act as Patti LuPone with a wig, you're still gonna be okay with seeing me kiss a girl. Was an extremely vulnerable, like, yeah, here's that part of me that loves to wear a pillowcase as a dress.
And you were rewarded, quote unquote. Not that there is a reward, but you were like the universe's gift back to you was validation by employment from this thing. Awesome.
From someone I admire, and then
and then having the materialize of literally the exact picture of what it was. How does that happen? You have to believe in something bigger because
yeah, it's not like they were like do something like that. They were like your thing that you do.
Let's do that.
We want literally that. And you're going to be opposite the person you're taking the piss out of.
I mean, that's the other thing is like putting me on set with those two professionals. You know what I mean? Like I didn't get to act with Joe Mantello, but he's there. Like to trust me in an environment that probably is $1 million just to show up that day for them. You know what I mean? It's like, and the scenes could be cut, like no offense to their writing. I mean this as a compliment to myself, but they're there to make you laugh a little bit in a pretty heavy season of American Horror Story, but not necessary to the plot in any way, shape, or form. Like it literally, I feel like they were stoned and were like, it'd be hilarious. Like, let's write that. This is for us. Like, I don't think it was for anyone but them. And
and you said same.
Yeah, I'm like, fine. That's fine by me.
But truly, Jonathan, it's like every writer is throwing in things for them.
Totally.
Like I follow this writer on Insta, and he said there's this King of the Hill episode where something just ridiculous, like he's a Wiccan. The kid's a Wiccan. And just because the writer, his partner, dated a girl whose mother was a Wiccan, and wouldn't it be funny if he was a Wiccan? That stuff, there are writers, there are people, human beings behind every episode that are writing things honestly for them, for themselves, because they love something. And it's in that own personal view of something that you throw it into a project. And it's interesting and original because it was in someone. Ryan liked that. Ryan loved you. So he threw it into something he loved, you know? It's like you're touching people, like individual people who are behind some very big projects.
I always say, this is something I really wish I could have imparted to Patti LuPone, because if there's one thank you that I have for her, it's that the one thing that I benefit from is how beloved she is. Like I cash in on the nostalgia that everybody else has for her, but it's been, I've had maybe one or two comments online that have ever been like distasteful toward me or mean. And they're usually like, one of them was like, drag queens are sick, to which I wrote back, like, if you think this is drag, that is an insult to drag. And someone else being like, Patti would never sing this. This doesn't like people who I don't think get the joke.
Point.
So like,
you fucking
yeah, exactly.
Egypt.
And so like, I've been so blessed because this, in terms of touching people, I really thank her for that. I think it's the love people. I cash in on that love, then the nostalgia that they have for her, putting her in a world that people also love that has nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hoover, thank you so much.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. This was such a blast.
Where can people find you online?
You can find me at Inappropriate Patti on Instagram and TikTok, but like, if you want the weekly stuff, it's not happening. But yeah, I'm on Instagram.
What about your own? Do you have an own Insta? Your like personal? Or is
Oh,
Patti
yes, I
your-
do. JD Hooves 84 is my
Nice.
regular Instagram that I created because my aunts and uncles started to follow Inappropriate Patti, and I was like, oh, this isn't for you.
Right.
What is this?
Oh God, go somewhere else. Go somewhere. Look at pictures of my dog.
Exactly.
Now, what's? I know we talked a little bit about you're going to put pen to paper and maybe get this one man going. Anything that you can chat about things coming up in the future, small, big, otherwise?
Nothing directly on the horizon. Some callbacks, so if I get hired for those things, maybe.
Right on.
Listening. But I would like to have my show up before May, so hopefully by then,
Good
it'll
goal.
be called Second Rate Somebody. So look for
I
that.
like that. I really like that.
Jonathan, to quote Ryan Murphy, you're an icon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Thanks, Jonathan.
I'll probably see you at work this weekend.
Yes, sir.
Bye,
See you
love.
then.
Mwah.
Stay dry.
Bye.
That was a good run. Do you want to record one now?
Yeah, let's record one. Great. There's little dots right there, and you can
Exit there.
You can
Great.
get it,
There we
yeah.
go. I was
All
trying
right,
to figure it out.
Jonathan.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Nice to
Thank
see you. Nice to
you.
meet you. Well,
How crazy is that?
I mean, what can you say?
It's like I keep saying, it's shit you hear stuff like that and you go, that happened to someone?
Really
like,
happened?
I don't know, it's inspiring in a way, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just, it just goes to show that everyone's path in this career and in this industry, you never know. Hollywood, it's a weird fucking thing. And it's like, who knew taking the piss out of Patti LuPone would like put you in the hands of like this enormous powerhouse of a showrunner and EP and director in Hollywood. And it's so wild. And he does it so how do I say, without the desire of fame and fortune and, you know, like a million yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Unselfish.
He does
like,
it so
portrayal.
unselfishly.
Right. And people can gauge that. I know when I'm watching someone who's doing it for the enjoyment of it rather than like
Right.
the limelight of it, you know. And it's also kind of like you did a couple of these films. You know, where would you be right now if you didn't say, I'm going to do the GoFundMe, I'm going to really do this thing, I'm going to really write this thing, I'm going to really throw it out there? Like, how scary is that? But you do a short, then you do another one. You've been to film festivals and interviews and all these things, and you're sort of getting into other rooms. But what if you didn't wake up and say, I'm just going to do it? And so for those of you out there who have not, but have that whisper in your ear saying, I got to do something, I got to throw myself out. It's supposed to be so scary. We just heard from a guy named Jonathan who was petrified of all these things. And he talked about other people who were just as scared. But I think that's the point. And that's why it's so rewarding, is because it's so scary. And you never know what is going to come from it. How many friends of ours who've thrown something out and then they got this or that? It's like, oh, what if they didn't throw that stuff out there? Even one
If it was
video.
easy and everyone did it, it wouldn't mean anything.
That's true. That's true. So pick up your phone, throw on the video, shoot something interesting or something intimate or something that you like. You may as well. All right, I need to get to therapy. You can find out more about Before the Break and how to become a working actor at workingactorpro.com. Follow us on Instagram at Before the Break Pod and Working Actor Pro. Follow us on Twitter at Before the Break Pod. That's the letter B, the number 4, the Break Pod. Check out Adam's stuff at adamdecarlo.com. Follow him at that Adam DeCarlo. You can see my stuff at thetomdowning.com. Follow me at I'm Tom, by the way. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a rating, and write a review if you like what you heard. Check back next week for an all-new episode with an all-new guest, Adam.
That's it. See you next time.
Adios.